What's up, smiling faces? Ryan Hafey with Hafey Digital here, back at you again with another tutorial. At least I guess it's a tutorial. Yeah, let's just go with that. It's another tutorial. Roll the intro. So yesterday I posted a video titled Life Without Context Episode 2. I did one of these also a few days prior to that. Basically the video is a series of scenes separated by a cool transition. That's kind of the whole goal of it. It sort of tells a story, kind of, sort of, but not really. Really the goal of it is just to kind of create some cool transitions, practical effects, all edited together in Premiere from scene to scene. They're a lot of fun to make and even more fun to edit, so I thought I would take you through my timeline for yesterday's video and show you how I went about creating some of the transitions that I put in the video. So without further ado, let's jump into Premiere and I'll show you how I did it. Alright, so here we are in Premiere and I'm just going to go ahead and play it from the beginning. Now this opening title, this was all done in After Effects, not really going to touch on that. So let's breeze past that and go into the first scene, which is me kind of waking up in bed here. Pull the sheets off. Don't want to get out, slam the sheets shut, and right into this second clip here. Now this transition, like a lot of the transitions in the video, was actually super simple. This one I believe was just a simple cut right at the right time to transition from one to the next. If you go frame by frame, let me get a little closer here, you can see that the blanket comes over, and then it's just a quick cut right to the hands there. And because it happens so fast, you don't really see the transition, but you can definitely see it when you go frame by frame. I think it works because as the blanket comes down, you can kind of see where the blanket is sort of creasing in a little bit, and then the shape of the hands, when I make the cut, are kind of in that same general shape, so the transition is nice and smooth from one to the next. So play it through again, and it looks like this. There you go. So I'll play it through a little bit, show you the transition from this one to the next scene here. Got the towel over my face, throw it onto the camera, and boom, right into the next scene. So admittedly, this scene here, I didn't really plan for the transition, so I actually had to backtrack. I think the original intent was to throw the towel on the camera here and then kind of do a similar motion to reveal the next scene, but I forgot to do that leading into this scene here. So what I did was I put the camera and just shot it up against a full white wall, and I filmed myself with the same towel that I'm using here, just basically putting it over the lens and pulling it off like that. Did that a few different times, got a few different takes, found the what I liked, and then I used masks to basically follow the towel out of the scene. So you can kind of see, if you go frame by frame, how it just kind of goes up and out. If I go into my effect controls and I click on the mask, you can now see that the mask is following the towel out of the scene, and that's how I transition from here to here. This scene here, I'm going to go ahead and play this through before I explain it. This was probably one of the more complicated scenes in the video. Alright, so there you go. Now obviously I don't have a twin brother, so I had to find a way to throw my own hat to myself, catch it, and head out the door. So this scene here is actually a compilation of two different clips. If I hide this track, you can see how the first track was done. It was basically just my wife standing at the top of the stairs throwing me my hat. Now if I unhide that clip and then hide the other clip, you can probably get a little bit better idea of what I was doing here. So if I click on this clip here and go into my effect controls panel and click on the mask, you can see exactly where I did my masking to achieve this effect. Now you'll notice that the mask goes around this vent. Actually, even though the camera was stationary for both shots, it captured that vent wrong. I think it has to do with the vertical lines, I don't know. So I actually had to mask around that the entire time. But everything is done frame by frame. The hat comes down here, and then at this point, you can see that the hat's position changes just slightly, but because it happens so fast, you don't really notice it in the final edit. Grab it out of the air, and then start making my way out the door. And as I start walking past the vent, I still had to mask around that vent so that it didn't start shape-shifting a little bit. So if you continue to go forward frame by frame, you can see how the mask changes. And throw the hat into the camera, and now we transition into the next scene. So this next transition, again, was another very simple one. It was just a one-cut transition from one to the next. And because it happens, again, so fast, you don't really notice the transition, or it doesn't really register as a hard transition. So in this scene, what I told my wife to do is pick up the camera, pretend like she was being playful with it, kind of shake it around, and then shove it into my face right around where my nose was. And then that would lead into the next scene. That would be part of the transition into the next clip. So I'll play this through. And there it goes, right into the next scene. Now this transition was actually a little more complicated than it looks because I had to maneuver some things around to get the noses positioned correctly. Also had to do some color adjustments so that the color from the first clip matched the second clip when they transitioned. So I'll kind of go frame by frame and show you how that went. So first of all, I want to point out this adjustment layer up here. Now on this adjustment layer, I threw in a Gaussian blur, and the purpose of that was to basically kind of blur and smooth out the transition from one to next and kind of mimic a normal out of focus camera blur to kind of make the transition just a little bit more smooth. You see as I go frame by frame, it's actually a relatively subtle transition and even more subtle when you look at it at full speed. Moving down here now to the first clip of those two, I had to do some size and position adjustments as well as some tone adjustments to this clip. As you can see in the clip, it's a little bit on the cool side color wise, and then if I go quickly over here to the next clip, it's a little bit warmer in color. So what I wanted to do was, as it was transitioning to the next clip, I wanted to warm it up just slightly. You can see right around there is when the face starts to get a little bit warmer in color, so that when it gets to there, the color of the faces match in both, kind of again making the transition a little bit more smooth. I also did a little bit of scaling and positioning to make sure that the positioning of the faces were roughly the same in both of the clips at the time of the transition. Then if I move over to the second clip here, really the only changes I made to this clip again were positioning and scaling. So the clip had to start off a little askew so that the noses were in the same place during the time of the transition, and then as I went forward a few frames, that's when I started to bring it back to its original position. So this is another scene where I had my wife help me. Basically I told her, you're gonna be right at my nose, you're gonna back up, you're gonna show everyone what I'm doing, turn around, face it on you, kind of shake your head like Orion, and then pan up towards the ceiling. And this is what came out of that. Holding my melons. And into the next scene. Once again, this is one of those one-cut transitions where I just waited for a good point when there was some natural motion blur in the frame, and then going right into me picking the cheese off the shelf. Now this transition works because the motions are happening in the same direction. So in other words, she's panning up, and then the cheese is being lifted out. And again, if you watch it quickly, it's relatively seamless from one into the next. This clip here is a very short clip that transitions into the next one. I'll show you how that one goes. No, I don't want the cheese. And now I'm at home. This was a one-cut transition for the most part. I did have to do a minor exposure adjustment, which I'll show you in a second. But let me go through frame by frame here and show you how this looked. My wife pulls the bag of Chipotle away for me, revealing the next scene. Now the exposure adjustment had to be made on this clip here. So if I turn off the lumetri color effect, you can see that if I didn't do it, from the first scene to the next, it would just be a very big and very abrupt exposure change, this scene being much brighter than the one before it. So I kind of started with the exposure pretty low and then bumped it up to what it was when I shot it to go into the next scene. So let me turn that back on and you can kind of see what that looks like. Alright, so now I'm at home eating at my kitchen table, and this is going to lead into probably the second most complicated transition in the video, and let's play through so you can see that. Take a bite, hang out, and then zoom out, and the clip stays in the phone. Now oftentimes with transitions like this, people will go into After Effects and they'll take a video and they'll kind of track it to an object. I didn't do all that. Everything that I've done here for this video has been done in Premiere. I can do some things in After Effects, but I'm actually way more comfortable in Premiere, and you'd be surprised what you can accomplish in Premiere with the effects that they offer you. So to accomplish this transition, I had to do a number of things. First of all, I've got an adjustment layer up at the top here. So the effect that I added to the adjustment layer here is the chromatic aberrations effect. It kind of separates those color channels, just gives it a little bit of a digital feel, aids in the transition a little bit. And then down here on this new clip, the clip that I transitioned to, first of all, I did some motion and scale adjustments so that it matched at least a little bit better with the clip before it. Also did some color adjustments on this second clip so that it matched the first clip a little bit better. You may notice as I scrub forward a little bit that the picture on this clip here becomes a little more desaturated, a little bit cooler in color. I adjusted it to be a little bit warmer right around the cut so that it more closely matches the one before it. And last but not least, we have the final scene with lovely me yawning and the camera being shoved into my mouth to end the video and go into the ending animation there. Really no camera tricks there. Just had my wife get the camera as close to my mouth as possible, did a little bit of a fade out at the end, and transition right to the outro. So there you go, just a little glimpse into what goes into the editing for videos that I make like this. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, be sure to hit that like button. And if you're new to the channel, I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button and follow along, because I'm doing daily vlogging for the month of August, which means that I'll be here when you come back and see me tomorrow. Bye-bye.